Shall we start? Hello, everybody. I would like to welcome everybody who came here and all those who are watching us and listening to us. The topic of our meeting today is preparation to the profession of the first camera assistant. I'm a camera assistant. I've been a camera assistant for many, many years, so I can give you a better perspective on this profession. This profession is not exactly the camera assistant, because it got divided into two groups. There's a technical assistant who technically prepares the whole equipment for the movie, and there is the assistant who's responsible for the focus. And in Polish it is called ostrzyciel, in other languages it's called focus puller. And I would say these are two sorts of professions. One is more technical, the other one more artistic, because you have to lead the focus, and holding the focus is related to more with the profession, artistic job. Initially, when I started to work, I had in my contract that I'm an assistant creative employee. Of course, everything evolves. The jobs evolve, people change, professions change. Everything moves forward. And technology also moves forward, and focus pulling also changed. It was different before, it is different now. We have newer technology, better. So as I said, we have two jobs. One of them is more artistic, one is more technical. I would say the assistant creative employee had caused better cooperation between the focus puller, the employee, and the directors with whom and the DOP with whom you agreed on everything. So initially in the first year of my work, I had more influence on my job, because I could decide about certain things myself, and I decided myself where this focus should be, and everybody was praising me, so I think I did it very well. And now I need to follow the orders of the director and the DOP, otherwise I will be fined by the producer. So the DOP says that the focus should be here, not there. And when I set the focus, I sometimes don't like it a lot, but I need to do that anyway, because that is the order from the cinematographer. So the title of our meeting is technical introduction to the first camera assistant's job. I can tell you that this cooperation underwent a big shift, because right now focus puller is sometimes away from the filming set, because the cinematographer cooperates more with the technical assistant. They decide what will be the lenses, what will be the equipment, what will be the cameras, what will be the format, how all this would look like technically. This is between the cinematographers, the cameraman, and the technical assistant. And the focus puller comes to the set, gets from the technical assistant, gets the so-called pull, which is a remote control of the focus. This is connected by a radio signal. This equipment is connected by a radio signal with the camera, and using this to shoot this sets in motion the engines on the focus. So I am away from the camera now, and the camera operators with whom I used to work very closely before, because normally the focus puller was sitting next to the camera. On one hand you had a cameraman, on the other one you had a focus puller. and that was a very close cooperation between the cameraman and the focus puller. Right now, we can be sitting in two different rooms, in a different room that the films is made, because the camera operates 360 degrees all around the room. It is on a dolly. There's only the cameraman, and the cameraman says that he feels very lonely in his activities because he does not have an assistant next to him. An assistant is in the next room, has a small monitor on which you can see the image from the camera, and basically on the preview he has to do the job, which consists in having the focus in the place where you should have it. So when you look at the screen, you usually look in a place at a place which is in focus. So focus pulling also consists in focusing the viewer on the character that is talking right now. So this is how you normally read the focus, so that the focus is on the character that is talking at the given point. Sometimes it's different, but this is, I would say, most of the cases. So for me, as a focus puller, the image that I don't like the most is the face that is blurry in the foreground. I always ask the operator to make it a bit darker, maybe so it's not so that it's not so aggressive, because bright face in the foreground looks horrible for me in the screen, and it shouldn't be like this. But these are the operator's stuff, and I, as a focus puller, I have to comply with what I just can hold the discussion, but eventually the decision is theirs. So in terms of technical introduction into the job, as I said, you had this evolution and everything is increasingly modern, and as I said, the focus puller works more with this with this preview, and by seeing what's on the preview, you have to set focus on the place that we want the viewer to have a look at. It's not always the character that speaks. Sometimes you have different things you have to do in the movie. Sometimes you have to go from a detail. For example, somebody's putting sugar into his glass, and then and somebody else takes this glass somewhere else, so you have to follow this focus. Of course, there are things which are easier and more difficult. The difficult thing are where you have a very small depth of field. The depth of focus is with longer lenses. The longer the lens, the lower you have the depth of field. The lower the aperture, also you have smaller depth of field. So the focus pullers, the cameraman, probably they meet together. They agreed somehow that they will be working on open apertures. It changed so much that the cameras are increasingly sensitive. They are more sensitive of recording. So during the night, the camera sees more than the human eye. You can see everything through a camera like in the day, and with your eyes you see just pitch dark. So this work is becoming increasingly difficult because open lenses have very low depth of field, and regardless of whether it's long or wide, this aperture is open. In my view, it doesn't make a lot of sense, because you know that longer lenses have very small depth of field by themselves. So if you add a bit of aperture, it's a bit better, because then you have this depth of field and you don't have only one eye in focus and the ear is not in focus. There is a fashion right now. The cameramen like this. The camera operators like this. Then the depth. Only one character is focused, and everything else is slightly out of focus. That eliminates the jobs of other people, because the set design tries this set on the filming set to be visible, to be rich, to be that something is seen there. And when the operator worked in the dark and you have a focus only on one person, the set design disappears. You cannot see it. You cannot see the colors. That's the difference between the Polish TV show and the international TV show. I don't know who likes what better, but right now we have Turkish TV shows in fashion where everything is very sharp, everything is very shiny, everything is very rich. You can see this richness of costumes, of set design. It is not that something has to be in focus and everything else. That something has to be in focus and everything else in autofocus. And we have Polish shows. For example, right now we have a show about the Jagiellonian dynasty, the kings of Poland, and everything is hazy there. You can see the costumes, you can see the background. Everything is dark and dimmed. But yeah, I mean, people watch everything. So these are different film schools, and everybody has their own idea for making a movie. This movie is written in form of a script. This script is, of course, a bit theoretical, a bit poetic, but then on the set you have to remake it into practical shots and scenes. And the assistant of the focus puller has a big impact on the image, and quite often, just as I said, works somewhere nearby, gets a preview with the remote pulling. He does his job and he goes home, just as if he was outside right now, outside of the filming set. Right now, the film crews are a bit smaller than they used to be. However, when you're making a movie, like a feature movie, for 2 months, quite often people don't know each other during that. They don't meet each other during that time. They don't know who they're working for. They don't know anyone. They don't know the names. Before, everything was more family-like. Everybody was boasting that the film crew is like a family. Everybody cooperated. Everybody knew each other. So there was some sort of an opening party, the farewell party. I worked a lot in Germany. In Germany, the integration was very nice because they had an opening party and everybody could meet everyone else, and you would know who you're working with for the future. If you don't have this, you come to the set, you do your job, and you go home. There's no time to talk. There's no time, because the films are made very fast right now. The filming set has to be done very quickly. We have 20 scenes to shoot, so very quickly, and go home. So the times have changed a lot. There's a big difference between the times of past and the times of now. But regardless of this technology, this focus puller's work didn't change much because the cameras changed. We do not do recording on films, but on memory cards and discs. But for a focus puller, the lens and focus control, zoom control, the engines that control this, all this thing in front of the camera is still there, and the basic information like the filters, etc., all this is still there. The back side of the camera changed, so the medium rather. So coming back to the topic of introduction to the technical job of focus puller, I would say the best introduction is through film equipment rental. I started working in the documentaries film. They sort of the production house. Then they also started to work on fictions, on features. But when I started work there, it was just documentaries. So when we started they changed name when they started to work with features, and then I practiced first. There was a rental and the workshop. The workshop consisted in every time you have to check the cameras. Every time when they come back from the set, they have to clean them, you have to correct them, you have to repair them if everything went wrong with the head, with the camera or with the tripod. And there's a rental in which you can learn about this equipment because you cannot go to the set without knowing the equipment. So regardless of the film school,
bo tam na planie jest tylko jedna kamera, czasami dwie, a w takiej wypożyczalni sprzętu jest mnóstwo kamer, mnóstwo możliwości, mnóstwo wprowadzenia ostrości też.
So during the focus pulling is about the larger possibilities, because there's the manual focus pulling, the so-called follow focus, 3, 4, 5, and there is an auto focus. It was called wireless control unit, the German WCU, 3, 4. Right now it's high 5. It's the most modern steering. The high 5 consists in an internal memory card being inserted. And when I stopped going to filmmaking and focus pulling in filmmaking, I started to work with the ATM film equipment rental, and my job consisted in uploading to memory cards the focus settings from a lens. You put a lens in the camera and you set and you record all the settings of the focus and aperture on the card, and then you use them on the filming set. This equipment reads and automatically sets in. Before that, you had to draw everything by hand. Right now, as I said, it's easier because the equipment is getting better and better. On the other hand, it's more difficult because the cameras are more sensitive. So you can film in very low key conditions and in open apertures, and every blur is seen much easier, and the work of a focus puller is much more difficult because it's more technical. You have to look into this preview throughout all the time and look and keep an eye on the focus. Quite often there is not even a rehearsal. There are no position. There are no positions. The acting positions. Actors had their positions where they stood, so that was easier in the past. Right now, you don't know where the actor is standing, so it's much more difficult, and it's much more technical. So I don't want to discourage you, but this job of focus puller thankfully there are young people are coming to the business. There are plenty of young people who do it. But I thankfully stopped doing this, and I have a peaceful life in the rental, where filmmakers come, they make tests. But as I said, I started from the equipment rental, and I finished in the equipment rental. The preparation for this job is the best because you have the most equipment and you can learn this about the equipment. That's the most important thing, to learn about the equipment that you will be working in. The more you know about the possibilities of those cameras, the more you have to say to the camera operator, and the more you can tell about the quality of every setting. Now the cameras are more digital. You have a menu with a number of settings. Those who are making photographies, you all know that because it happened earlier, that in the menu you had full of your menu in photo cameras was also full of settings. You have to know this in order to make a good picture. So theoretical preparation and practical technical preparation in such a rental is very good. Also, but it's very difficult to learn to pull focus in such a rental. This is, you have to practice on the set, but it's best to learn from focus pullers who have been working for some time already and have this skill already mastered. So I would say the first thing that happens, the first level of the first professional level you attain in the rental, the second one on the set, learning from people who have some longer practice. You can learn a lot from them, and then entering this profession, you start to do easier things. By doing easier things, they're then more and more difficult. For example, yesterday we had night shooting with Marcin Koszałka, and there these were like very difficult handheld night shootings. The operator was running, jumping around like crazy, and they invited me to do focus pulling. The operator was also a professional. Marcin Koszałka was the DOP, also a professional. The students were observing that, and later the second part of the of this workshop was that a French colleague took over pulling the focus, who came here to learn that, and the camera was taken over by a guy who wants to be a cameraman, and the students were working on this under our eye. It consisted in them first observing how we work, and then they did the job alone. This translates into what I said, that first you have to have a look, observe, and to start to do it yourself. In terms of filming sets, a number of groups, of student groups come there, not too many at once, because they shouldn't interfere. But you tend to have a few students on the filming sets, and you can immediately see who's interested and who's not, because some are looking in the door and just observing, and the other walks up to the camera and tries to learn something, to understand more. So there are people who are more and less interested. Some people like this, some people don't like this. These are not easy working conditions. It is 12 hours on the set, minus the lunch break. So there is a difference between working in Poland and working abroad. I used to work in Germany, in France, in England, and there the work is better organized. Here in Poland, quite often, even though you have to make films quickly, quite often people come to the set, and nothing happens until midday, until noon, because the preparations, there's makeup, because the props, and you have to improve certain things on the set, and the filming starts late, then it's getting even more late. Abroad, it's more organized. You have to be there on time. Actors come on time on the set. We make we know where the actors will be walking, where they will be standing. We know where the camera will be. Then the actors come to change into costumes and to do the makeup, and we're doing the technical stuff. We know what will be the scene. We know where the actors will be standing. So we're preparing the lights. We're preparing the set. During that time, the actors get the makeup and get dressed, and we're shooting. So this time is used to a great effect. However, in Poland, what I noticed is that recently, especially with the TV shows, it is so that the actors really come early to the set, and quite often, without any rehearsal, they know the text very well, and we start to work immediately. I am a bit astonished by that, because as a focus puller, I would like to have some sort of a rehearsal to see what it's going to look like, but sometimes there is no possibility, because you have to do things fast. And I am astonished that they come and they know everything from the script. They know where they would come or where they have to stand, as if they tried something like that. I haven't seen those rehearsals. So sometimes you have to ask for a rehearsal, or sometimes you just have to work on the go. It doesn't always work well, and quite often we have a situation that the first shot is a rehearsal. It is recorded, but every next shot is different. We have the same text, the same movements, the same set, but for the focus puller, it is important that every next shot, first, second, third, fourth shot, take, is repeatable. If I don't do something good in the first shot, I can improve that, because I know what I did wrong, and I can improve that in the next shot. But the occurs that you cannot always do that, because there are corrections. So if in the first take the DOP or the director sees they would like to have something differently, there is no repeatability in the next shot, because the actors are behaving differently. So if every take is different, it's for a focus puller, it's like a new shot, altogether new shot, not another take of the same shot. On the screens that we have the so-called picking, or in different colors, in different saturation, and this picking allows you a lot to lead the focus, because even if you're outside of the set, not seeing the actors, I need to be able to see the focus on this small preview. I mean, on this preview, you can't do everything out of the air, so technically it's done in such a way that the human contour or some objects are in different colors. You can set the blue, the green. For me, for example, it's easiest to have green when we're doing night shooting. It's the one I can I see the best. And if the shots are wider, the picking has to be it has to be less pronounced, because if you have too much picking, you have to decrease it, because otherwise everything looks sharp, which is not true. In close-ups, however, especially during night, the picking has to be increased, because when it's brightly blue or green, depending of course, the focus is there on, let's say it's close up to the eye is in focus. So in older times you could calculate everything because you were next to the camera. Right now you don't do any measurements yourself. sometimes you can double check with distance meter. Of course, it's best to use all the possibilities to be sure that something is in focus. We have picking, we have the distance meter with which you can check the focus, and your own assessment of distance. If let's say picking is 2 meters and something is obviously in 4 meters, this is obviously not true. So the most important thing the most difficult thing for the focus puller are smaller and bigger movements of the camera. There are movies which are not static. They're all about movements of the camera. That used to be the transfocator was used in older times. It was supposed to turn a ring on the lens, and the image would come to a close-up, but the transfocator fell out of fashion, just like the apertures went out of fashion, and right now you work on fixed lenses. So in order to change the plan, you have to get physically closer. So I had one set when almost in almost every shot we had a close-up to the actor, and I was going crazy. It was done in very... If the actor is walking, it's even worse. But if we have a static actor and the camera is moving, it's very difficult to translate this movement of the camera to the knob with which you lead the focus. It's best to make a few points. You have a starting point, the second point, and the third and the fourth point. Having these points and seeing how the camera is going, you can more or less do it in an easier way. If you're not able to do this and you do it only on picking or in the on the sharpness on the TV screen, it's very easy to get it wrong, unfortunately. So this job is sometimes difficult, sometimes it's easy. It is interesting to the extent that you meet other people every day on the set. You meet actors. You have a possibility to talk with them, during the lunch break, for example. And there's always everything interesting you can see on the set. These sets are in different places, not always in the studio. Sometimes they're in places where there will be no access for you. And very often there was a possibility of international travel. We had international co-productions, we had productions abroad. You travel on the cost of the production house, and you can see how life looks like in other countries. As to the filming set, in every country it looks very similarly. When I was working in Germany, I was on the set for the first time in Germany. When you were talking, or if you talk to a man, or you just talk to him, or you looked at him, you could see what he does. This profession impacts people in such a way that when you're on the set, it's pretty easy to tell them away, to tell them among other crew, among the rest of the crew. I've worked with numerous international movies, and that was my decision from the very outset, because I started in a film production house as an, I would say, assistant. Then I became the camera assistant. There were 3 gradations. So initially, I worked with the film chronicle and documentaries. There was not much focus pulling there. Only with Mr. Sławomir Jedynak when we were in 1957, and with Zanussi, we worked together. And these were totally different times, totally different equipment than today. When it comes to international movies, there was a possibility in that film production house. I worked there already for a few years. There was a possibility that all the assistants that worked there could become cameraman. There was a training course. There was like an evening school where you could go and you could become a DOP. And some of my colleagues became camera operators. A few colleagues who worked with me became operators, but they became operators who worked as operators, but did not come through. They're not like famous names. I didn't go to that course because I thought it's better to be a good assistant than a bad cinematographer, because a bad cameraman has not much to do, and a good first camera assistant. And that was a good decision, because quite soon, after a few years of work, I started to go abroad. And at that time, that was not easy, because passports, nobody was giving passports. Our passports were in the artistic headquarters, where all the passports of artists were held, both of singers and musicians. It was called Pagard, the artistic agency. And I, with great trouble, I got the passport, because it occurred I was not in the army, and I didn't get the completion certificate from the army. So I managed to. Somebody pulled out a piece. And I was not on the roll. So I mean, the thing is, it seems that the military didn't notice my existence, so they didn't call me into the army, and then there was a problem with the passport. But somehow I managed to pull it off. For the first time, I went to Germany. I don't remember which year was that. We had like deep communism, and when I went to Germany, it was like a fairy tale, like a totally different world. I was in Cologne. The cathedral was white, now it's black, but everything looked so beautifully. The houses, the streets, it was as if somebody built a mock-up. Everything artificial, so clean. I saw a parrot in a car. You wouldn't see such things in Poland. That was my life decision, to become the camera assistant. And until today, I've been working for 50 years now. And I'm still a camera assistant. As I said, I could be the cameraman, but I decided to, for many reasons, to skip that opportunity. Among others, to be able to go abroad and do something more. It was more of a. Initially, it was more of a independent position. The director nor the operator forced me to do anything. Right now, in the current movies, in the shows, it's much more difficult. As I said, I am to listen to the DOP and the director. I don't like to work in headphones, but they forced me once. I had to work during the film because I was sort of the DOP would say closer, or maybe further away, change the focus, and this is horrible, because you're not an independent person. You're just following orders, and this work is not that fun anymore. So I'm not a creative employee, but a technical employee. So I told you what I can, and if you want to know more, I can answer some of your questions. I do have a question about the pulling the focus. To what extent, how often does this intuition where this focus should be is coherent with the vision of the director, and how often it happens that it's divergent? Are there things that after a shot we're able to see without the word, without communication, or are there sometimes things that require some discussion or exchange of visions? What does it look like from your experience? I think that's a question of, it's an individual thing. Every man normally looks at the screen and looks at the place which is focused. So usually look at the person who's speaking. So a person who's speaking is the most important to be for it to be in focus. But we have different situations. When I work with the preview, when I'm sitting next to the when I'm looking at the screen, I can see a shot, and sometimes there is a problem that I for me the focus should be here on the foreground, because that's where you should have the focus, and with the background you move there when somebody turns away. I had it very well mastered that if somebody turns back, the focus changes to another person or some depth. I can see this small screen as if I was looking at a big screen, and I know what I would like to see on this big screen. So I'm focusing on what I would like to see on the screen. But the director and DOP could have another vision, and they hear the sound better. So I can't hear the sound at the camera. The most difficult ones are the car shots, where there are two people in the car, and you have a side view. One of the people should be blurred, the other one should be in focus. There's the other way. If the director is looking with the editing, they know that from this position of the camera, this person will be in focus, because in a moment we will be shooting from another perspective at this person, and they will be in focus then. And then in editing, the person who speaks, it will be always in focus. However, quite often the DOP or the director wants this focus to move to the person who's speaking. So the person who's in the background is in focus, and then the foreground again in focus. And this is much more difficult in editing, because sometimes you have to show that person from behind. Its reaction, for example, when it's listening, for example. So now you can show this reaction when they're listening, because they're always blurred, because the focus is on the foreground. So you need to do the second person in focus, because you know that they will be shot on the other person from the other side, and they will be in focus then. And then the editor has a chance to not only show this person who's speaking, but the person who's listening. In focus shift, you cannot do that, because the person who is listening is always in blur. So these are different DOP and director and first assistant visions. When I'm doing this, nobody forces me to do this. I think it's done well, and this is to be edited, and this is like an editing shot, not that the whole shot gets into the movie. So sometimes we have this discrepancy. Another fashion that came from the United States is that the focus on the back of the head, and the camera follows the protagonist with the sharp, and everything else is blurred. I don't know what good does it do, but I do not comment this. And I believe that if camera is following the actor, the camera should see what the actor is seeing, the space, and not the back of the head. These are the, I would say, inconsistencies that we agree to on the set. I have to adapt, but if I was doing that alone, I would do it according to my views, as if I would like to view it on the broad screen, on the large screen. Again, I'm looking at this preview as if I was looking at the big screen where I would want to watch the movie. That's the discrepancy. But everybody has their vision. The vision of operator and the DOP is most important, is the movie. So you have to adapt. Then, of course, it's viewable or non-viewable. I wanted to ask you about two things, but let's go one by one. The first one is there no threat? Because in the festival we talk about artificial intelligence, how it will takes away some of our job. In many professions, don't you feel threatened, or do you feel there is a threat from artificial intelligence that this focusing will be done by computers, that the operator will point a few places where the focus should focus, and the focus puller will lose his job, or don't you see such a threat? Well, we've been talking about this threat for a very long time. I think that so far, not yet. Maybe in the future. Maybe in the future it will happen, so that there will be automatons. Right now there are attempts. A year ago, we had here a camera which did the focus pulling itself. There are also already cameras like this connected to a computer. Like in a camera, you have the following of a face following, yes. It consists in the camera you have is following a human, and the camera follows with the focus after a human. Maybe at some point yes, but I can't foresee it right now, because focus pulling, I think, it's a bit of an artistic thing. As I said, there's this example with the T. Of course, in some films it happens, often or not, that there's a detail, and out of this detail you're changing focus to a given character, this or that. And it's the director and the director, the DOP, and the first assistant decide about that. If you can program the artificial intelligence like that, I don't know, maybe that will be more difficult. I think it's easier to tell to the first assistant, do this or that, rather than to give it to tell it to the artificial intelligence. I think it is a matter of the future, because people work on this. So, but still, the works are parallel. On one hand, you work on remote focus pulling. On the other hand, you work on various instruments that would help focus puller in their job. All these tools are being developed for the focus puller, not for the artificial intelligence. So I would say there are two streams, and probably artificial intelligence will have its way at some point. But right now, it's difficult to get to the. If you want to now, it's difficult to phone people, because everybody has an artificial intelligence answering the phone, and it's difficult because people get discouraged after a while to call anywhere and to know anything. It's horrible. Good. I just wanted to ask you one more question. Concretely, what you mentioned, that there was a stage in your life where you sort of could stay in the profession of first assistant, and then that you could become a DOP. And it started to change because you said you had more participation in this creative process, that you could work a bit more with the camera operator. And right now, the power of the cameraman is bigger. Wasn't so? Didn't you have a thought later that that you maybe you should have become a cameraman because they have more power and they have strange ideas today? Well, that is true, of course. Those are strange ideas for me. You know, like the opening the aperture for the whole film is a strange idea for me. So I must say that on the wide, if you I like to watch movies which are in focus, where the image is nice and pronounced, but everybody has their own ideas. So when it comes to cameramen, they sometimes have strange ideas. I remember this. There is a camera operator. After a few scenes, he said, "But we're making these scenes with one shot, and that's what I'm saying. You're not thinking in editing. The operator makes one shot, one one scene in one shot, and the editor has nothing to say. And the operator says, yeah, maybe we should have done that in a different way." Even if a scene is done in one shot, it's always good to do something to break it somehow, and then to select, just to have a material to select. So there should be another sort of counter shot that would allow to connect different takes. And if we talk about working, that the work of first camera assistant is worse and worse, this job is still consists in pulling the focus, in being on the set, here or there or somewhere else. You have to go abroad somehow, make a movie, sometimes theater, sometimes a feature movie. So there is a variety in life, and the life of and the more you work, the faster the time flies. But I don't regret that decision. No. I don't know if I would be a good cinematographer. I'm still not sure. Even though I've been taking photos myself since ever, and I'm also taking a video camera for every set. Maybe not every, but to more important sets where I used to work. I always tried to work with a video camera and to do something interesting as a sort of a memoir, or a souvenir rather. The pictures and videos that I'm doing, they say they like it. They like them. Now the criteria are different. In the times of past, the photos for movies, the negative or positive were provided to me. I got some roles of the movies where you were to take the photos. If you didn't do the right, if you didn't develop it the right way, it was a tragedy, because you had very limited materials. Right now you have to do hundreds of pictures, and everything will have loads of pictures, and everybody's and these pictures for me are not always great. Sometimes they are unwatchable. But there are various criteria, the different possibilities. There are people who do as much as possible, and also there are people who do very little, but they do it well. I'm sorry, we have to finish. Thank you.